Before we jump into the devlog, I have an announcement. So now we have a Discord. If you want to join a fun little community to get front row seats to any channel announcements or projects, or if you just like having way too many Discord servers, that's linked down below. See you there. Hey, Handmouse1 here. Welcome back to my devlog series for A Farmer's Life, the farming game that I am making in Scratch. In this video, I'll be adding animals to the game. There's a lot to do this week, so let's get stuck right into it. I started by sorting the UI for navigating the barn. This was really simple because it was basically the same as the UI for the blacksmiths and the hardware store, just with a different coloration to better match the rest of the barn's artwork. I needed to do something to unwind, so I decided to do an extended art session in which I made the background art for where the animals will go in the barn. I started with outlines for the wooden paneling in the background and some piles of hay before detailing the wood. One byproduct of the recent visual update is that all the art has to be so much more detailed now, which on one hand is annoying because of how much longer it takes, but on the other, the art is probably the most enjoyable part for me, so it's not much of a drawback. I coloured in the background panels, added in some shading to the hay, then detailed the flooring, which is just meant to look a bit dirty, like there's scraps of hay or mud or animal muck that's just been trampled into the floor so many times it's just basically part of the surface. And after a few final touches and a few spots of shading, this background is complete. Then I moved on to the art for the animals. I have way less experience of drawing animals than I do with backgrounds or characters, so it took a bit of experimentation to get things looking right to me, and I might go back and touch them up at some point, so feel free to give me your thoughts or ways that I could improve them. I made art for the baby and adult forms of the chicken, cows and pigs, and I get all of this set up in the animal page, so 3 animals can be displayed per page with an option to purchase the animal if you haven't yet. I get all of that working with these sprites displaying the appropriate costume at the appropriate time, and then implement the functionality for baby animals to grow up into their adult forms. Next, I want to get the animals to produce goods, so I made the art for an egg. I converted this into an icon that will appear when an egg can be collected, and I get that producing, and I make it so you can collect the egg when the chicken is clicked. To do this, I had to add the egg to the inventory. I made a new tab in the inventory for animal products, making the art and label for this and getting it to display. I added the egg to the item index and got it appearing correctly and made the label for it, and that allowed me to make it so you can actually obtain the egg item. You need to be able to feed the animals, so I created UI to show you how much food is currently in the barn. I get that displaying correctly and create a button to allow you to refill the food supply. I get the refill screen all laid out with icons for each crop and added some mouse over effects, making the icons light up if you have it in your inventory, and make it so that you can click and hold to add the item to the barn. And then I sorted some UI elements for the animals and made it so you can select and purchase the cows and pigs. And because we have the basic mechanic for it sorted already, I make the milk item and get it set up in the inventory. Next, I created some new tools, a milk bucket to collect milk and a cleaver to collect meat products. I went back and forth on whether I wanted to add butchery to the game, but for some mechanics that I want to implement down the line, it's a necessity. But rest assured that there's no gore or anything, so it should be fine. I made items for the meat products, and the only real challenge here was making the beef and pork look different enough. I also made versions of these items on grey backgrounds for the barn shop. Speaking of which, let's get the shop sorted. I made a bunch of art icons for the bucket and cleaver, both bought and not, and recolored buy and sell buttons for the shop to fit into the barn's look. I get all of that laid out correctly with the appropriate buttons, navigating you to the correct pages of the barn. I made the labels for the cleaver and bucket, and something that took me way too long to get working was all of the mouse over UI for the items. It was tricky because what I had to display for the bucket and cleaver was drastically different to the sellable items, but I eventually got everything sorted and working. I made it so that you can actually buy these new tools and that the UI changes from click to buy to bought once you've unlocked them. And I copied the sell code from the normal shop and applied it to the items in the barn shop, so now you can sell them. Next, I made it so that the correct tools display for the animals versus the farm, and while I was at it, I made it so that the only tool you can use in the quarry is the pickaxe. I added in the mechanic that pressing the keybind for a tool that's already selected deselects it, and I dull out any tools that you haven't unlocked yet. Now that you can select the new tools, I could make it so they can collect milk and butcher the animals. To try and ensure that people don't accidentally butcher an animal they don't want to, I created a red skull icon that appears over the animal if the cleaver is selected when you mouse over them. And I wanted to integrate animals into the other systems in my game, the first of these being research. I made 2 research options: animal satiety, which reduces the amount of food that animals eat, and animal production, which means that chickens and cows produce their eggs and milk more frequently. I made icons for each as well as their descriptions, and implementing the mechanics behind these was super easy. The next system that I wanted to work the animals into was the tutorial page I added a couple episodes ago. I needed to explain the process of building the barn, buying the animals, collecting the animal products like eggs, the new tools, and as always I had not planned these pages out in the slightest, so it took a bit of experimentation to get everything fitting in a way that looked right and made sense. I also made the labels for each page number. Next was the completion log. I created a tab for the animals, and while I was at it I touched up the art for the achievement tab icon. I blacked out the icons for each animal product, and it was super easy to get all of this laid out because of how I had set it up before. What took a bit longer was finding all the places where you could find these items and run a check to see if you discovered them, but I got that sorted quickly enough. And I made an achievement, animal person, for when you collect enough of these these items. I realized that as you upgrade the barn and unlock more animals, the food capacity should also increase, so I quickly added that in. And finally, I wanted to add these new features to the request system. I made it so that Bridget, the barn's shopkeep, can make requests. She'll only do this if the barn has been built, so it feels like you're unlocking a bit more when you do so, and her favorite items are naturally the new animal products. But that's gonna have to do it for this week. Wow, it feels like I got a lot done. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did, and let me know that this is something you want to see more of. Don't forget to join the Discord if that's something you're interested in. And apart from that, I'll see you next week with another video. Bye!